agencies at that time in 2018 in Shopify were cute guys from Brooklyn, or like bearded guys from Brooklyn. Like that was the kind of like MO of an agency. And we wanted to bring like enterprise documentation and process and rigor and experience.
First of all, just for the audience, are you
Yeah.
not just a cute guy from Brooklyn? I'm a little confused by the why. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I am so pleased to have Marko from Domaine here. Marko, you're somebody who I've seen on the commerce internet for many, many, many years, but I feel like we're about a year into having met, and I love
Yes.
every chance I get to bump into you, and obviously the broader Domaine team. For those who don't know me, I'm Aaron Schwartz, one of the founders of Orita. We build AI customer segments for a bunch of Klaviyo's biggest brands: Spanx, Domain, Hardy & Son, Spix, Domain, partner with Domain, Caraway, Hardy & Sons, you name it. But today we're talking about Marko and his background in Domain and candidly like future of commerce stuff, because you are a deeply thoughtful person in the space. So let me be quiet. Marko, would love a proper introduction to your background, please.
Wow. Well, thank you, Aaron. It's always been a pleasure to bump into you just a year in, but you know, your expertise and thoughtfulness is always something nice and warm to embrace within. I'm a 25-year e-commerce guy. I've never known anything else as an industry. I was a creative, and I recognized that by being involved in commerce, I would always have a job because I know people buy stuff. So I intentionally, put my love of making things pretty into my understanding that Americans purchase. And so I did that in 97, 98, and have been on the brand side for 18, 19 years before starting a Shopify agency, which I did in 2018. But before that, I was at Ralph Lauren, Brooks Brothers, Theory, a really cool company in between all those that incubated brands, but also sold luxury brands. And it was called The Line. And then they had a store in New York called The Apartment by the Line, which looked like a, fancy like Soho studio loft apartment. And it was a great brand. I mean, I've always liked apparel and luxury. That's my background as a brand guy. And then, SFCC as a platform, we bought it as Demandware. We all loved it. Everybody was a real fan of SaaS-based e-com back in the day, 2010, 2011, it was the talk of the town. And then I think we all know that Demandware under SFCC was underinvested over time. When I say we're all aware, I mean, I think we just, if you're on either side of the coin, either from the services side or the brand side, you could tell that it wasn't moving as quickly as you wanted it to, and it was getting more expensive, and you maybe were being sold, or you were being sold to by Salesforce to buy adjacent clouds through their acquisition, and that started to feel funny because I'm an e-com guy and I don't want to buy more and more clouds. And so in 2018, myself and my co-founders, who both came from Born, quit our jobs to start a Shopify agency, very much on the premise that we wanted to take our enterprise backgrounds and put them into an agency. I used to say that agencies at that time in 2018 in Shopify were cute guys from Brooklyn, or like bearded guys from Brooklyn. Like that was the kind of like MO of an agency. And we wanted to bring like enterprise documentation and process and rigor and experience into the Shopify ecosystem. And so 2018 was a fairly early point at which to do this. And we would also take on projects that were of greater complexity than I think Shopify was even aware that their platform could handle. Our house being one of those. And that was a custom build, like any big homeware furnishings brand, a lot of custom work that was then translated into Shopify with thousands of variants when people thought that you couldn't do that many variants on the platform. So I'm really proud of how we shook things up back in 2018, and then grew and sold to private equity, in so doing merging with our greatest rival, Half Helix, to form Domaine, which has now been a going concern for 2.5 years. And a lot of stuff has happened since our merger that I could speak to, but that is quickly stated my background and what brings us here today.
That's awesome. All right. So a couple of things. First of all, just for the audience, are you not just a cute guy from Brooklyn? I'm a little confused by the why. Okay.
No, I am an old fart. Yeah.
Old farts from Brooklyn. All right, chiseled veterans.
Yeah.
I love that framing. You're like, what have you become, Marco? Uh, I've so many threads I want to pull on. I actually want to start with the tomorrow half helix piece,
Mm-hmm.
just because you framed it as like our greatest rival. I look at you
Mm-hmm.
guys, and again, from the outside, right? You obviously there's more complexity, and we're not trying to like
Mm.
spill tea here, but it really seems like you were able to very quickly come together as a team, build a united front. Domain has now added some, in my estimation, amazing agencies, right? Like Pattern
Mm.
Code. How have
Yeah.
you guys been able to do that? Or like any advice for anybody who's, forget agency, just like merging organizations,
Right.
making sure that you are able to bring cultures together well? What has been your success?
It takes a lot of work. I mean, there's roll-ups versus mergers, and we weren't a roll-up, so we did the hard work. And there's nothing that I could say that makes that sound easier than it was, because it took a lot of, there's clearly gaps where you fill with the like stronger person, but then, like you kind of, there's the easy decisions, but then there's the hard decisions, and that's hard. And so the reason, they call it work because it is work. I think what fundamentally allowed us to do it well is we both had in our DNA the exact same like cultural values and the same goals, right? So we were in the same strategy, right? So like we both wanted to be the best commerce agencies in the world. We both decided that Shopify was the platform with which to do it so that we could be experts on that platform, and so that we could signal to Shopify that if you're going to send us a lead, we're not going to squizzle it over to some other platform. So being single threaded has some partnership, signals that are really important to the growth of both of our agencies. And we did that. So we did both of those things independently. And then from a value standpoint, just valuing, expertise, engineering, I think like a sense of entrepreneurship and innovation within the team, like a spirit, like a cultural support of letting the individuals drive forward with better ideas. I think there's a phrase or like a speech that I got from Andrew Rosen, who was running Theory at the time. He said the best ideas, and he said this to a room of like 1,000 people. He said the best ideas in this company aren't going to come from leadership or from me. They're going to come from you. And so I think what he was doing is like, I mean, he said a lot more in that phrase, but that he was fostering a sense that everybody in the company has a role in pushing it forward. And so I think that both Tomorrow and Half Helix had a deep respect for its team. And again, those were all values that we independently, even though we looked on our face perhaps to be quite different companies. And Half Helix kind of grew up in the Shopify ecosystem while we came in ostensibly from above. We kind of met exactly at the middle and exactly at the same revenue profile and the same like 70, 80 people at the time. But those were the fundamentals that we shared. And that's why we could get through ostensibly a year and a half of grind to merge the two teams and deal with all the internal politics and challenges that it takes. And again, I don't want to say that it's easy, because it really takes work. And I say that on the other side of it because I'm so proud of how the team has come together and merged.
I love it. I mean, you mentioned a couple things there, but again, more from the outsider, from the partnership. You guys are clearly like a deep engineering org. You're also a clear innovation org. And it is self-evident that you are, hey, we will solve a hard problem, or we will push the boundaries for the best Shopify brands. So it's interesting to hear you kind of talk about those as almost like inherent values from the teams or principles from the teams.
Yeah.
I'd love to stay with Domain for a minute and just like, what is the breadth of services you guys have? Like, not looking for like a long pitch, but like, what does Domain do? What are you guys best in class at? Who are the brands who should be talking to when in their life cycle? Take that wherever you'd like.
Yeah. I mean, the base concept is to migrate brands onto Shopify. I see that as the first step in digital transformation. I think that term obviously bandied about a lot. When I was at Theory, when we were being told about digital transformation, it was really like a data problem and a customer problem. And it was required about $1 million worth of consultation and license costs to get the customer figured out in order for you to like digitally transform. And I think that's poppycock. I think maybe the first step could be to migrate to Shopify, reduce some of your expenses, and put the extra revenue into customer data, sure, but into also going international or CRM or POS or loyalty. So I think there's an inherently digitally transformative move to get over to Shopify. That's the bread and butter of what we do. We also take on, retainer clients, but then what we do is to support their growth. First we launch fairly quickly. We're very efficient. We get them up and running on time and on budget is something that we focus a lot on. And I think our internal process is really, really strong. And again, there's a lot that's been baked in there from the Born days and kind of like what I expected when I was hiring agencies, when I was at Theories. Really bulletproof on process, getting us on time and on budget. And then to your question, our growth services include CRM, CO, GEO, ACO, like agentic commerce optimization, which, that's kind of the tip of the spear, getting somebody up into an LLM, but then feeding that requires classic SEO skills. So we can open the door into LLM channels, but then it's like SEO and GEO from an ongoing basis is a service offering that kind of feeds the LLM beast. We do CRO, and then we do, kind of B2B, and then launching people internationally and loyalty are in there. So the bread and butter in the service offerings are CRM, CRO, and basically ACO, agentic commerce optimization.
I love it. Thank you. I want to go down the Shopify thread for a minute, and then I want to come back to you actually, an hour or two ago, you sent me a presentation that you shared yesterday. So I want to pull that, and then let's see where the conversation goes. You were talking about where in Commerce Cloud, and like they weren't moving quickly enough and they weren't investing. And again, I ran a brand for a decade, then I started a shipping company, and then I was at Loop Returns. Like until recently, where I've been a Klaviyo shop, I've always been in the Shopify ecosystem. Obviously a lot of overlap there. My feeling as an operator right now, and this is such an insane way to say it, is like Shopify is almost shipping too fast. And so it is like impossible to keep up. And it's amazing. And they're touching so many edges. It's any part of the commerce stack. Shopify is building something new or in beta with something that will be coming in 6 months. So now I need to start thinking about it. How do you guys as an agency work in this ecosystem that is ever changing? How do you support your brands? How do you help them figure out the signal from the noise? Yeah, I would love to explore this topic.
It's not easy. Again, one of the foundational premises that I was speaking about was that everybody on the team has to feel empowered to innovate on their own. So I think that you can't do it like top down, right? You have to have internal team members who are eager, engineers who are saying, they're using Claude to do this or that. And then, their managers are like, wait a second, should I codify that? Can we make this a process? And so there's like these, in every department, there's some sort of loop of the people saying, I'd like to use these tools. So that goes back to my answer about Shopify moving perhaps too quickly. I think you have to move quickly now. Like there's no other option. And the speed is breakneck. And so in some ways we have to keep up, but I'd rather be in this quite challenging speed of innovation side of the coin rather than making large declarative statements as other platforms do, but not being at the forefront of it. So I appreciate the chaos that we're all in. Those are the two sides of it. Let the platform be shipped too fast and let your teams, empower your teams and culturally structure your organization so that your teams are moving as fast as the ecosystem around you, and then you manage somewhere in between.
I like it. And then in terms of brands, I imagine, and again, your role has shifted over time, so you may not be getting the direct feedback, but you're out and about. Do you find that the brands are pulling Domain and saying, hey, we heard about this thing, we really want to experiment with it? And then part of your job is to be like, guys, this is all cool, but your job to be done is X. Like, are you trying to rein the brands in, or what are those relationships at this point?
Yeah, you have to. Aaron, you're exactly right. Those are the two things, right? Because the people at the brand are also, they're hearing about it from their board, and their board is asking them, and this is the theme of the last quarter, is how are you staying at the forefront of AI? Meaning you, like VP of Ecom, right? And so then those people have every right to expect the agency to be the one responsible for that in the world of ecom. And so we knew about 9 months ago that we needed to start our geo practice. And we did, right? So I think we got ahead of it thanks to a lot of great people here. Mac, our CRO and co-founder, launched our AI commerce suite in the middle part of last year. And so we were helping our own clients show up in LLMs and strategize and think about their PDPs and their schema and their, which is now in our meta fields that should not be in the meta fields. We were thinking about that and talking and engineering towards that about 9 months ago. So I'm really proud of that. So we were kind of ahead of the arc. But yeah, we're getting a lot of hurry up questions from our brands. And by the same token, Shopify itself says, we just launched UCP. I had a conversation with people from Shopify not 4 days later who literally were like, where's your landing page about your accelerator around UCP? I expected you guys are domain. Where's your landing page? And I was like, well, yeah. My first reaction was, I don't think we need to create an accelerator out of something you just announced 4 days ago. But I didn't say that out loud. I just went into my hotel room and created a landing page around what we do and framed our offering literally after hearing that. I was at a conference, just went back into my room and did it. So I think that both audiences are saying move fast, rightly or wrongly. I do think that you have to have the expertise to back up that rate. And again, I'm super confident there given how our team has shown up for the last 9 months in this front.
Yeah. I love that example. Two different threads just very quickly out of that. One is, we are involved with a bunch of different platforms. Klaviyo is home base for us, but I was at a conference for another ESP a year ago and they pitched their like AI, this, that, and the other. And I was at drinks with an enterprise sales guy who'd been there for 7 years. And I was like, oh, are you pitching this product? I'm not going to say the product because,
right.
And he's like, oh, no chance. I'm not. No, it's not good yet. I'm not telling. And with the sales team isn't selling it. And so I love that the Shopify team is like, no, we actually understand this. And you guys are idiots for being 96 hours late to the party because this is the future. The second one is actually conversations I've had with your team, like with Stacy and the CRM team, which is like, AI is great. And it's fun to say like, what's your AI strategy? But it's always got to be tied to like a job to be done. So it's like, to what end are you using AI? Like if it's shortening your path, but you're on the wrong path, that's not good, right? So it's, what are you trying to get out of it? Before we go into the AI commerce suite, can you talk for a minute about ACO? It makes so much sense. I hadn't heard that acronym. Obviously GEO, AEO, sure. But what does ACO to mean? What does ACO mean to you? How should a brand be thinking about this?
Yeah, the way I look at it, and again, I could have a somewhat immature view, but ACO is kind of opening the door into various channels. And so you could have all the right schema internally, but you have to run through. We have a 30-point checklist in our agentic readiness offering. So it's a free audit where we, look at how our clients are either showing up or not showing up and how their catalog is their Google catalog and their Shopify catalog. And we've done, again, like a 30-point diagnostic. And then that, and within Shopify, by the way, when they were telling us to be selling this within, 72 hours of their announcement, not every Shopify store had a particular toggle that was like, some of them were grayed out and some of them you could go in and start to show up. And so there's certain internal, and again, this is where I get lost, but there's certain internal workings that need to be diagnosed before you can actually just show up. And so to me, the ACO is the opening of the door into those channels. And then there's GEO and then classic SEO practices to make sure that you're showing up correctly. And the way that I have been framing it is that brands have not a responsibility, but brands should want to own the customer relationship in those channels instead of having Walmart or Amazon showing up ahead of them. And so you want to both own the conversation about your product. You probably want to own the conversation around your product, meaning not just when your product is named, but when kind of adjacent themes are being discussed by somebody in their intimate conversation with ChatGPT. So there's a lot of kind of fundamental SEO work to be done. I think that then once we are like in a retainer where we're doing that SEO work, we are seeing other things to do to optimize at the top in order to show up better in the LLM. And that's why everything we're doing is basically agentic commerce optimization, even though the groundswell of the ongoing work is classic SEO stuff.
I love it.
I don't think I explained it well, which I think is also indicative of the period in time that we're in. Again, ACO is kind of the umbrella, but also the very tip of the spear where the work happens at the bottom layer, which is also, again, classic work.
It's not an easy topic. And, as we all know, in 3 months, some new editions will come out and something will change. But like the framework, I think is still right. And I think the analog to SEO is, candidly, for anybody who's been around for a while is pretty helpful. Can you give a primer on like universal commerce protocol and what a brand should be thinking about with that? Like, I know obviously it dovetails very closely. Is there anything? Yeah, I don't know. Just like I'm running a brand. I've got a $25 million brand. We're good. 50 million. We're growing. We're Shopify. Why should I care about UCP? Is it like my number one priority? How do I think about this?
Yeah, that's one of the two protocols, right? So it's ostensibly how you would show up in Gemini and Copilot and not how you show up in any other LLM, right? So if I'm understanding correctly. So it is really targeted towards Google and Google's products. Maybe there's things outside of Gemini and Copilot that Google powers that doing UCP also sets you up for. One of the big reasons why you should do it is that Shopify has had one of the dings on Shopify has been its SEO, right? Like the way it's the schema or whatever the right term is makes for poor crawlability from Google's perspective. That's been like a competitive battle card that other platforms have used against Shopify. That is obliterated. That's like no longer the case. Now being on Shopify puts you way in advance of other platforms because of UCP. So that alone is a huge win and I think is very rarely talked about. The other reason to invest time and energy here is that people think that Gemini may come out on top, right? So we've seen Claude take a lot of mind share away from ChatGPT for all sorts of political reasons and otherwise. But the sleeper for most people watching this is, as one of our clients said, if Gemini is sitting in Google where people are searching otherwise and it's showing up there, then I need to optimize. Like that's the place to optimize, right? And he's completely correct, right? So rather than in your LLM, you're seeing Gemini show up right there in your Chrome browser. So for those two reasons, I would invest, time and money there.
Yeah. Not to mention, besides being incumbent, Google is pretty good at hardware and
sure,
purely from a like cost basis and being able to serve the tokens, whatnot. Yeah, I would definitely pay attention. I like that I'm getting a little like my own personal like, Marko, tell me how to talk about this very complex topic very simply.
I'm so new to this as the real power nerds in LinkedIn might be able to ascertain, but at least I'm, have become a fast learner.
Yeah.
That's what, as a 50-year-old man, if you're not friggin' still learning, what are you doing?
And somebody who looks much older than you, but is slightly younger, I'm lost, so we're good. I do want to talk about the AI commerce suite, right? So
yeah.
Personalization, automation, discoverability. You're mentioning Mac is building this. Like, what is this AI commerce suite? And then we'll unpack it a little bit and talk about like one site per customer, but give me like an intro to what the objective is and what the product is today.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, but the first thing, and I mentioned this earlier, the first thing that an agency has to be is the consultative partner to our brands around AI. So that means that every third-party partner who we are bolting on to their site when we're building it, and every partner who is built in that we review every quarter on behalf of our client during our QBRs, our BSA, Business Solution Analysts, not a great term for a bunch of people, but our BSAs have a bullet point in their job description to be assessing the AI nativeness of every third-party partner. So I think at the very core, if we're to be a trusted long-term partner to our clients, we have to bone up on all of the ecosystem with regards to whether or not AI is being sprinkled on top as a kind of cute little thing or whether or not it's truly native because the step changes that we're seeing around us are significant, and some great partners that we have now are maybe not going to be around for very much longer. So that's one of the core parts. To me, it's the less sexy part of the AI Commerce Suite, is that promise to our clients. The GEO and SEO/GEO offering was also part of our Commerce Suite when we launched it. And then we had a number of close partners with which we were doing interesting things. I think I'm going to open that up now and not have that be as narrow as it was, because at the time, 9 months ago, that there was really like 4 or 5, key third-party partners who I could look to. Now that's no longer the case, so that's going to be more open. But that was our R&D and labs and innovation department expressing that we are into making IP and interesting kind of like first mover advantage opportunities for our clients by partnering really closely with folks like you in kind of creating things that you wouldn't be able to get elsewhere. So that was our AI Commerce Suite at the get-go. I don't know if we still want to call it AI Commerce Suite going forward. It might just be like our agentic commerce offering. So branding aside, those are the 3 main buckets of offering, right? So again, just like really deep knowledge that we are going to always be updating because it's endemic to our team and part of our QBRs. Second, explicit, ACO stuff, ACO, GEO, and ACO, GEO, and SEO. And then lastly, kind of an innovation labs chunk. So that was our AI Commerce Suite in a nutshell.
The thing that's interesting to me about you guys is you actually have the technical chops to go in and go validate, because, I'm like an investor and advisor in 5 AI commerce tools. Like there are so many tools out there, and every native platform is now saying that they do AI, right? I will never forget walking into NRF, not this year, but a year ago, and it was just Agentforce everywhere. And I was like, I think that's Salesforce, but I don't really know what Agentforce is. And so everything is AI. Do you have any tips for up and coming brands who are trying to figure out, like, is this real or not? Is it like actually go look at the case studies and talk to a bunch of other customers? Like, how do you make a decision if you're a brand owner, what AI tools to pull in?
That's a great question. I think without knowing where some of the tomfoolery lives, it's hard to ascertain when you're being. I think one of the most important things as a brand is to have great partners who you can trust and ask them. And so first, I think your agency should have the chops. And if they don't, that's something to look at, right? They should be your front line. And I would look for them for guidance here. Second, talking to folks like you. So if one of your partners is AI native, ask them, ask Aaron, who do you like? Who do you trust? Who's doing interesting things? What have you heard? I would go those 2 routes before trying to become an expert yourself. Because this reminds me, by the way, of there was a time in 2016, 2017 when brands would say that they're a technology first company, right? It was Goop, Stitch Fix, Glossier. They were proudly telling their investors and the market and their customers, we're a technology first company. And I think very much with the advent of Shopify, these brands can say, oh my gosh, I'm going to reduce my engineering budget and put more time and energy into the customer relationship, the customer layer. And I love that. I mean, as a CX, as a UX and design guy, I would like to put the customer first. So everybody's an AI. And that'll look funny to us in about a year's time when AI is just going to be standard and you won't have to say that anymore. Yeah, that's using history as a indication of the future.
It's like today's call is happening on the World Wide Web. Is that not okay?
What's that? It is. Yeah.
I actually wanted a couple more questions that are like, especially going into your background. I was thinking throughout this conversation that still at the core, you're a designer. Right? You've been in commerce, you're at brands, you're on that side. How does being a designer, but like walking in this world as like so deeply technical and like so on the cutting edge, how's that been a benefit to you? Like, has it helped how you kind of see problems? Has it helped how you, I don't even know, but I'm curious, like, is there anything in your core DNA that has helped you be so successful in this space?
The number one thing has been that I've been brand side. So when you are at an agency, you kind of get a feeling from what they're looking for, right? So you know what they're looking for from how you present to them, the things that, I kind of know inherently what matters to them. And so when I do a QBR to them, I know who I'm talking to. I know what they're being graded on by their bosses. So I'm trying to give them a QBR that they can copy paste and put into a deck to show their bosses what we've done. So I have a lot of empathy for the clients we serve. By the way, I think that they want to just know that the site is working, and that means that there's no excuses on the agency side for being late or being over budget. A site is supposed to just work, especially a Shopify site. So I hold my team to a pretty high standard because that's how I looked at it as a VP of ecom when I worked with agencies. So I think that is a superpower. Well, it's not a superpower, but that's a piece of my experience that has been meaningful in creating ostensibly two agencies. But the design part is in a layer to that, which is this customer centricity and really caring about, there's different customers. There's the customer of your client, who you're serving by making a good site. I always think about this in terms of concentric rings. So like being customer centric in terms of everything we're making being not just easy to use, but fun to use on behalf of the client. So just sites that are gorgeous and fun and easy to use, but then also thinking about the fact that there's other customers. My client is a customer and my partners are customers too. So being an empathetic and nice guy and thinking about designing experiences and relationships that are positive on behalf of all my customers is important. So that is inherently a designer's job, is to make things enjoyable and nice. So I guess I apply that to all of these different kind of customer rings around me.
Thanks for sharing. I do think it is a superpower to be in the space and have spent real time at brands. I think it's painful to buy software. It's painful to see something come late, and just like making sure that you and your team are ahead of that creates a much better experience. All right. I wanted to jump in to the presentation you shared me just for a couple minutes because I thought it was really fascinating. And there were a couple ones that I kind of pulled out, but it was like principles for scaling modern brands. The one is about cross-functional collaboration as a competitive advantage. A second thought is like doubling down on what you're best at. And a third one that really stood out to me is treating partnerships as a core growth channel. I'm curious if you can tease out any one of those, all those, anything else from the presentation where, again, if we're talking to a $50 million brand who's listening, like what do they need to hear? What is like kind of the message behind the message? I'd love to get to more like tactical advice. So again, it was like cross-functional collaboration, competitive advantage, doubling down on what you're best at, and partnerships as growth.
For the first one, collaboration being a competitive advantage, I think creating unity amongst your teams, your internal teams, and having them rowing in the same direction is always your goal. And one way to do that is having shared KPIs. So various leaders in your department, across your departments, sharing KPIs with other leaders. So you are inexorably tying them to each other. Their mutual success is required for everybody to meet their numbers. So that's a trick that I learned years ago. But another part of driving a team together is having everybody care about the customer as much as one team. So it's not like customer relationship isn't a UX problem. It's not a design problem. It's an everybody problem. It's an everybody should be equally passionate about figuring out who the customer is. I often say from a domain perspective, I have two jobs. One is to grow revenue for the companies I serve. And I also want to help them understand who their customers are. And we're not hired as a marketing agency. That is like literally They're not looking for us. But if you're an agency providing customer insights to just like yourself, like if you're a partner providing unique point of view on who the client's customer is, you become indispensable. And isn't that your goal as a partner, is to be indispensable? So I do think customer centricity, which is a often bandied about term, you could build that into your teams to help them cooperate, because every department should be rowing in that same direction, and also sharing KPIs. With regards to doubling down on what you're best at, I do think that knowing where you're a SME and where you might not be a SME is good. I actually learned at Ralph, I was given a great diss. I was told that I was a generalist, and it hurt my feelings. At the time, I wanted to be the world's best UXer, and also I liked being a designer, and I don't think I was a 10 at both. At best, a 6.5 at both. But if you're a 6.5 across a number of different things, maybe you become a generalist. But I think I embraced becoming a SME at all the teams that I would touch. And then I learned, okay, that's good. Then I could lead a multi-departmental team, because I have some sort of empathy across many of them. I don't hold one, so I'm not siloed and narrow, and my SME-ness is my generalistness. Anyway, I tried to make a lemonade out of lemons from that diss. But where I'm getting at with that is I personally had to find out what my superpower was. And then the application is obviously to a brand. You have to double down on the part of the product that is differentiated and just go ham there. Don't diversify too quickly. One anecdote from that would be Bombas. When I started working with them many years ago, I learned that they had spent 2 years figuring out how to make a better sock. And I think people probably imagine Bombas as being just pointing at socks and making a mildly better sock, and then being and then being this kind of early DTC disruptor. But they went out to China. They went to the factories. I mean, it's a great story of how, and there's 7 different parts of the sock that they innovated upon. That's why they became what they are today. And so that was them really doubling down at what they're best at. So from a product standpoint, and I love brands. I'm just a big fan of what a brand is, and that, Nike decided to be attached to athletics and performance and excellence. It's maybe not the greatest example these days, but it found a lane and it doubled down on it. So I think that's really important, both personally and as a brand. And then the last one is in partnerships. And I already referenced, if you're not an expert at AI as a person at a brand, look to your partners for that. And in terms of shared KPIs, which I was talking about for your internal teams, read your partners into your roadmap. Let them know what you're doing for the year, and let them become responsible for particular KPIs. Because what every partner is going to do in a QBR is tell you how their product worked against their KPIs, the ones that make them look best. What if you challenge them and said, what I'm really looking at Orita for is this particular metric. So when you present to me, show me that, because that's how I gauge you. And then it would have you doubling down on ensuring that my brand is really being well served by this particular thing. And I think that every partner that you lean into, earnestly and with curiosity and partnership, they'll lean into that relationship, because we love clients who are clearly leaned into our relationship. So that's why I think it's great for brands to, because again, at Ralph, I learned to kind of look down at partners, because we're this big fancy brand and there's this big brand ethos. And then I learned that the opposite is probably the right path, is to really lean into these relationships a lot more closely.
Marko, this is great. I have selfishly 400 other questions. I have leadership questions. I have more strategy questions, but I will bug you probably at Shop Talk or some other event instead of taking more time here. As we wrap up, I wanted to create some space. You've shared so many insights. Are there any other takeaways or anything else that you wanted to bring for those brands out there? Anything else you wanted to share? And then secondarily is, where can folks find you? Where should they find Domain? If there's a call to action, I want to create space for that as well.
On the latter one, Marko at meetdomain.com, and domain has an E at the end. So It's a pretty challenging URL. We're trying to get domain.com, but it's
Is it
owned by
meat,
the
MEAT, like you're eating?
exactly right. It's embarrassing for somebody in the business. Domain. We thought we'd be able to get the Tattinger family to part with domain with an E .com, but our negotiation skills have not proven to be strong enough there. So yeah, meet domain. You can just email me directly if you have any questions or want to talk to us. Yeah, I mean, I literally I wanted to ask you more questions. Instead, I was just rambling on. But
We got 5 minutes if you've got any bangers for me, but I might embarrass myself at the end of this.
yeah, I mean, if people listening or watching don't know, one of the reasons why we're talking is that we have a great relationship going. One of the reasons why our CRM practice has, Klaviyo called us, they awarded us #1 global agency partner of the year last year,
No big
which is
deal.
frickin' something
Yeah.
because we're only a year and a half into having a CRM practice. And I think and hope it's because we lean into our relationships with you, which is one of the principles we just talked about. So I would love to throw it back to you is what do you look for in brands or in agency partners that make you better? What are some signals that you love to see in a sales prospect call that let you know what, this is going to be a great and profitable relationship for both of us? I'm just so that people on the brand side know, again, what to do to get more out of their partners.
It's a really good question. Thank you. We do an audit for every single brand up front. And it's like a cool sales tactic. Hey, we'll audit your fine. But the reality is we probably reject 25% of brands before we get to a pitch for a couple of reasons.
Oh, wow.
We're a
Yeah.
machine learning AI team. We need a lot of data. We don't serve many SMBs anymore. We just moved up market. If you have a lot of data, we are best in the world at using that data to kind of stack rank your audience, tell you who wants to hear from you today or not. If you have a little data or you don't have a lot of history, well, if I haven't seen March 4th, if I haven't seen March 4th last year for a brand, how am I going to tell the brand, is it a high risk day or be a very conservative day for them to send out an email? Maybe March 4th is their anniversary sale. So we do the audit so we can go look at the data. The third reason, so too little data, not enough history, or if it's a brand that's just crushing it, I've been in this ecosystem way too long. I ran a brand for almost a decade, and I tell this anecdote too much, but there was some product called Instant Search Plus or something like that. That was a $40 Shopify app. And I didn't like one of the search results. And I was the biggest pain in the butt possible because it was my $40. Right. And I still remember how frustrated I was. And the reality is our team had built this amazing software. And I was like, why did it not, do this one random thing? And I have no doubt I was wrong, but I am so empathetic to the customer who's buying software. We still buy software. And I'm just I don't try to sign somebody who are going to churn in 6 months. Right. So I think that is the thing is we do the audit. The places where we are most impactful it's a couple. One is a brand with a low click rate or poor deliverability. It's just they've tried everything. They use RFM segments. They use all or nothing segments. Our AI segments will just be better. And so if nothing's worked, we are actually a great solution.
Oh, okay.
Prefer brands not to get to the point where nothing's worked. I'm just try us now. But the second is a brand who has a very big clean list, manually suppressed. They put Marko through a sunset flow. Maybe he didn't buy with a 70% off coupon, but he might have come back because he launched a new product or he's back. So let him back in. And we are very, very good at finding what brands think of as a needle in the haystack, but it turns out there are a lot of needles. In terms of the partners we work with, honestly, I like having high bandwidth conversations. So we are not perfect. We want our product to be a lot better. Tell us how it can be better. I want to be able to discuss, here's where we fit in the ecosystem and these guys and these guys. And it's not competitive. It's limited time, limited resources. Let me help you kind of figure out what, first problem identify. What is the actual issue you want to fix? And then we can help you solve stuff. And a lot of times we're not the solution, but XYZ other tool is. And so I like partners where we can actually just it's not, oh my God, you're a tech company, everything should be perfect. It's no, we are very, very good at what we do and we can get better. And we want you to make us better by telling us what the problems are to solve next.
Totally. Yeah, I think you make the space for that in the way that you show up as a partner and as a brand. I think it's important to recognize. Yeah, I think that there was just an attitude that I had when I was brand side at these big ass $1 billion companies that was highfalutin. And again, I was in these I guess,
Yes.
at that time. And I, just thought that I was awesome. And I think that partnering is about kind of meeting somebody and humility and curiosity mixed together and also being interested in innovation is part of curiosity, I guess, but being both curious and humble makes for great collaboration with partners. So I'm going off of the high bandwidth conversation, which is not a term I had heard before, but having high bandwidth conversations is something I care about.
Man, I appreciate this. Thank you. Thanks for asking too. Marco, I love working with you. I love working with Stacey and your team. I'm excited to see you hopefully in person again soon. If not,
Yes.
I'm officially just going to start calling your cell phone when I have random ideas. So get excited for that. Thank you for your time. This was really wonderful.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder and co-CEO of Orita.ai. We build AI customer segmentation for some of Klaviyo's biggest brands like Oriana, Spanx, Caraway, Third Love, True Classic, Run Beauty, and on and on. Brands come to us to help find untapped revenue, improve their click rate, drive away mean bots, and a bunch more. You can learn more or get a free customer engagement audit at Orita.ai.